the one and only Sean Rakidzich, the host of Airbnb Automated, the largest and undisputed champion of YouTube with almost 100,000 subscribers, and everyone in this room probably is. If they're not, you should be. The one, the only, Sean Rakidzich.
Look at that guy. Wow. That was good. How's everybody doing? You are all champions. It's been, what, 4 hours? 5? Something. And all of your eyes are open. Give yourselves a hand first off. Thank you all for coming. I'd also like to thank Sokova Entertainment for putting this together. This is his first event ever. I think he did a good job. And to all of our speakers, every single speaker out there, you guys crushed it. Of course, my best friend, Sean Ray. Robert, I thought your last name was Iacob the whole time, so thank you for correcting me. My last name gets butchered, too. Syed, that's so cool that you came on last minute, and I'm looking forward to having more talks about data. So that's super cool. I think data is super important, so having our second speaker kind of talk about the analytics side was, even though it was probably a lot of information, I think data is an important part of what it is that we do nowadays because 5 years ago when I started, no one really was doing this, weren't they? 2014, it was easy. So now that a lot of people are doing it, the question is how do we get new market share, right? How do we find customers for us without taking customers from everybody else? Because it is a growing industry, and where we get our customers will matter over the next few years. I don't have a planned talk, by the way. I like to kind of just gun it. I like to look at you and say, what do you want to know about? Let me see if I can read your mind. So all of you know the YouTube channel. I did want to plug. We're 1,000 subscribers away from 100,000. Yes! Which is so exciting. When I made this YouTube channel, I just did it because I was like, I'm going to prove that this is real. Sean Ray was having a debate with somebody on cash flow or equity when buying a home, a rental property, and I'm like, you know what, there's a third option. So I made my first video that went viral, which was about rental arbitrage. And so because the comment section, you know, YouTube has a lot of interesting people, right, who make a lot of interesting comments. They were the reason why I kept it up. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to prove this. This is real. So I don't have slideshows, but I'm going to post a photo, and we're just going to talk in front of my iguana friend. I took this shot in Tulum. We were on vacation. So as a lot of you know, Sean Ray and I, we travel a ton lately. This has kind of been our goal. He has been a great friend to me because I am a workaholic. I've been a workaholic ever since I was like 14. My first job was at a pancake house, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, bussing tables. And I always thought I'd prove myself by outworking people. And it's been such a imbalanced life there for probably the first 20 years of my life. Sean Ray's like, Sean, you're not going to enjoy your life only working. And even though I found a way to fall in love with work, right, that's kind of what a lot of us do, right? We turn what we are passionate about into income, and then we live our lives making money, right? And so I found a good, healthy relationship there, I thought, until he's like, you know what, let's take some trips. Let's see the world. There is something outside of what pays you. And ever since then, for like the last few years, we've been traveling a ton. And so I owe my soul probably at this point to my best friend, Sean Ray. So thank you for convincing me to get a passport. Yes. And everybody should applaud him for that. His last name is Ray. Mine is Rakidzich. Rakidzich. Is the gain on this? Because I feel like I have to be right here to be heard. Yeah, I will exchange mics at any point in time. So I got here to Chicago yesterday. I flew in from Philadelphia, and switch. That is so much better. Wow. Okay, can you hear me now? So I flew in yesterday, and I came straight from the airport, luggage in hand. Like I got 4 bags because we were in Columbia. And I flew from Columbia to Philly, and you guys, most of you know that I live in Dallas. So I've got 120 pounds of camera gear and clothes that I'm dragging around into Philadelphia, and then I flew to Chicago. And I came straight to a steak place, Gibson's Steak. I met with a few of you, actually, and One of them was in the corner, and he's gone. That's weird. I met for some steaks, and I'm just dragging my luggage up to the front door. And I leave my luggage right outside this, like, circular door out front of Gibson Steakhouse, which is maybe a mile away. And these two ladies are like, watch out, your stuff. I'm like, it's like 20 degrees outside. Like, a thief is not going to try to steal 100 pounds of luggage. But nice to meet you. They're like, hey, we're here for a real estate convention. I'm like, oh, so am I, kind of. They're like, oh, are you here for the condo association thing? I'm like, no, I'm here for an Airbnb thing tomorrow. And one of them was like, oh, I want to do Airbnb. I'm like, well, your timing's perfect. The event's tomorrow. She's like, send me the link. And she sent me a message this morning going, oh, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. I'm like, well, and that proves the point, though. There's so many people who are like, I want to do something. Oh, I love that idea, right? That sounds great. And her friend, they've been in the property management world for 40 years each, right? So these girls are like in their like mid-60s, right? And they're fun. They're outgoing. They're confident. They're saleswomen. And one of them was like, you know what, I'm just done. She's like, I'm done managing properties. I had 35. I'm down to 8. Right, I've got 8 doors I manage. I'm like, oh, so you own and operate and manage your own 8 properties? She's like, oh, no, I don't have the money to buy and manage. I'm like, you girls should come to this event tomorrow. Like, you really should. And here they're not. And the first step to changing your life is action. I think we can all agree, right? We all know so much. The problem, and you said it on, like, all you have to do is Google something on your phone, and you can learn about anything. But at the same time, I had an hour-and-a-half-long phone call with this woman yesterday. And, my calls are paid. She paid me way too much money to talk for way too long about every question she had about Airbnb. And she hasn't picked up her first property yet, but she wanted to know everything, right? And she's remarkably intelligent. You could tell every single question. It was like, who wants to be a millionaire, right? Every question she asked me got more and more difficult. So an hour and 20 minutes into the call, I stopped her. I'm like, you know what? You are like 1,000 times smarter than you need to be. I know dozens of hosts that I personally talk with who have like 10% the intellect and planning that you have, and they're doing it right now. You are asking me questions that are relevant 3 years from now when you have 150 properties, but right now you don't even have one, and what you're doing is you're trying to fill up your brain with everything that you could ever possibly know about Airbnb so that way you feel confident going in. But she doesn't understand that she already met that breaking point of knowledge and action. She was filling up her brain with all the information in the world, and she was eventually going to overwhelm herself with information. We all, no matter how smart we are, have a point where we are full, right? And she was pretty much trying to fill her brain up with everything she could possibly ever know, but at that point, she's going to realize it's too much work. And so she's essentially put herself in that position of paralysis by analysis, right? So I'm shaking her through the phone. I'm like, we are going to stop talking about it, and we're going to start doing it, right? So just like the girls yesterday, they liked the idea, but they just touched on it and they moved on. It wasn't important enough for them to show up and actually get their information. And the girl on the phone yesterday, she wants to know everything and is paralyzed to inaction. So there is a balance here. We are in a very unique situation on this planet right now where opportunities, they seem to come and go all the time. You made money in Bitcoin. You're one of the few people I know who actually got out in time. Congratulations. For that reason, you should probably follow him on YouTube because he's going to do some interesting things in his life because very few people can actually sell at the top. So that's really cool. But we're in a spot where there's this niche industry, short-term rentals, and it's maturing enough that you can choose exactly how deep you want to go in the game, right? You could pick up a property and get a property manager and a cleaning company that knows exactly what they're doing, and everything's available. If you don't want to learn something, there's somebody out there available who knows it, and all you have to do is pay them. We're kind of at that point now, right? So everything you pay for, of course, comes out of your profit. So if you want to make all the money in the world doing this, you can, of course, master every little detail and do it all on your own. But at any point that you feel overwhelmed, you can always just find a local friendly professional who it's their business model to take over that task, right? There are housekeeping companies that they get paid to do this. And they're becoming more and more price competitive. Right? There are property management companies that do remote management, right? That they'll never show up at your home and they're all software driven. But then there's local property management companies where, like you, got $100 per door covered. You built your own system. And that, at the end of the day, is really what you want to get towards. I was talking to somebody. I've talked to tons of people this morning, and I can't remember which exact conversation it was. I think it was Steve from Maryland. Where are you? There's so many people here. But he's in tech. He works for a cancer center. You gave me your business card. Wow, he's not in the room. Okay, crazy. So How did that happen? But we were talking about housekeeping, and I told him, because he was worried about hiring his own housekeepers. That was like his big concern. And I said, well, if you only have one property, it's fine to hire a company who knows absolutely everything that they're doing, because just like hiring a consultant to teach you everything, the company who's your vendor will teach you everything as they service your account, won't they? So you pay a housekeeper to come in and clean, who has short-term rental experience, and they will do everything that they're supposed to do. And you didn't even know they needed to do all these things, but they do it every day, right? So you just sit back and you take notes, and you pay them their check every week, and you write down everything that they're doing. And so by hiring professionals, you actually get a free education while getting your Airbnb rental serviced. You eventually then take everything you've learned, pick up some more properties, hire your own people, and use what you learned from that cleaning company and just duplicate it. Because isn't that what we're doing, right? How many of you have an Airbnb because of a YouTube channel that you've seen, right? You're duplicating, right? And I'm duplicating what I do right, and I try to forget what I do wrong. But in a sense, I'm still duplicating my own information as well. That's kind of the game that we're playing. So it's totally in bounds to hire somebody who knows what they're doing, like a housekeeper or property management company, but you should do it with an end in mind, which is to build your own. The secret to making a lot of money on Airbnb, owning or arbitrage, is systemization. You are not in real estate. If you think that you are in a real estate play, you're looking at this from a bias, right? And as I was just talking to our wonderful host who tried to introduce me before Sean Ray did the whole big hoorah, I got into Airbnb by accident because I own a business that saves newspapers. That's what I do. I build sales teams that sell newspaper subscriptions to millennials who don't want to pay for information. It is a challenge, and the fact that the business is still open surprises me, but I'm still in the newspaper industry. But I used to place employees in order to live in these apartment complexes city to city because it was expensive to use a corporate housing company, so I just essentially built my own. That was it, right? So then, people moved out of my apartments, and then I had 10-month-long leases left where I was making $0 in rent. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Maybe just eat $4,000 a month, and just take it off the company bottom line. But then eventually Airbnb became the solution, and that's how I got into it. But because of that, I didn't approach Airbnb like a real estate play. So many of you are already in real estate. Who here is like a broker, an agent, wholesaler, flipper? Who here does real estate first? That's a solid third, right? That's about a third of you. And so a lot of you are coming in with this real estate bias, right? And that's probably the hardest thing to do is to forget your old tricks. It's not learning the new trick, but it's kind of like shedding the old one. You're not selling real estate, you're selling time. This is a time play, not a real estate play. So you're building systems to help you sell time. And what time am I talking about? You're talking about the time of accommodations. Where is somebody going to spend their time while they are in your city? Right? Where is somebody going to spend time during their daughter's birthday? These are the times that people are spending money to stay at your place. But it's not your place that matters, it's the time. Because if you were just selling a home, right? If you were selling real estate, that lot would sit on a lawn, or the lot is the lawn, but you're basically going to have a property that will sit for months and months and months until you sell it or the owner finds a new agent, right? That's how it works. The home will continue to exist until you sell it. In Airbnb, when today is gone, if you didn't find a guest for tonight, you can't sell tonight because it's yesterday. That's why we're selling time. And the moment you realize that, and a lot of you are hosts, so you already get this game. The moment you realize that you're selling time, you're selling something that you can never get back when the day elapses, is the moment you start to master the model, right? You start to master revenue management, right? And operational strategy. So people traveling last minute are like my favorite people to study. Right? It's like an anthropology kind of thing. Why do people book last minute? Because we make the easy money on our future rentals, don't we? Like somebody who books 6 weeks out for 5-6 nights. Those are the ones that we want, right? They'll book at $200 a night, where our average nightly operating cost for rent is like $60 a night. So we crush it on 5 to 15 days a month. But then those bookings block our calendar. And then we have little days in between that are unbooked, right? This is kind of a common thing. And the difference between 60% occupancy and 95% occupancy at this point really is how well you treat those days in between the big bookings, right? And so a lot of you who've seen my channel know that I talk about pricing strategy a ton. So I don't want to get into a lot of the lessons that I've already been teaching, because you can just simply watch them on YouTube. But the key here is to understand that people who travel last minute have kind of their own special needs. And they're not brand loyal, right? They're I want the best place at the best price. And so last night, I was going to stay at one of Saeed's properties, but it was like 30 minutes away. The Uber ride was like $35, and it's 11 p.m., and I'm at Gibson Steakhouse, right after I met with those two real estate chicks in the front that didn't show up to this event. Poor them. And so I'm sitting there about to like close up shop. Robert was there. We're about, we're talking about our experiences as hosts, and I met him years ago at a different event in Houston, and then I realized it's like 11, and I've got to go sleep somewhere, get up, and come here. So I'm thinking my cost of the Uber there and back, and my time cost to get to Saeed's Airbnb, even though he's going to let me stay for free because he's the bomb. I sent him a message, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Priceline something next door because it's the same cost as my Uber, and it saves me an hour and a half, right? You couldn't give me a free Airbnb last night, like, because some things matter for certain people. And it's nothing against him because he's got some awesome properties, and this is a brand new building, and I want to see his operation. I'm not here for very long, so I would still like to go see his properties if he'll have me. But the point is, when people are traveling and they're looking for a last-minute accommodation, certain things matter. Proximity becomes such a big deal. See, people are like, they're about to leave like a concert venue, right? This happens to me in Philadelphia all the time. People are leaving like an event venue like the Met or the Fillmore, and they're like, man, I don't feel like going all this way to stay somewhere else. I don't feel like driving home. So a lot of my last-minute travelers are people who are looking for hyper-convenient and at a certain price point. See, when I got on Priceline, I could have booked this hotel for like $58, or I could stay at the Hyatt a mile away for $73. So I decided to spend the $73, right? Because I like that hotel more, I spent the extra $15. So you don't have to be the lowest price, but you have to deliver the best like blend of value, right? Product and stuff. So I'm going to show you one photo. I think this might be one of the very few things I'm actually going to show you that's relevant because this iguana is cool. But all right, let me know if you can or cannot see this. Oh, my computer's going to die anyway. So let's see if we can actually show you this here. Is that visible? Kind of? All right. These are two charts. They're just snapshots. Now, these are from your performance tab. I do not know if you have to have Pro Tools. Who here can see a performance tab where you can see graphs, like how much money you collect per night and stuff? Who here is not familiar with like things that look like this yet? Okay, just in case you need Pro Tools, to see this, you have to have at least 5 properties on Airbnb, 5 active, and they unlock something called Pro Tools. If you want to try to unlock Pro Tools right now, you go to your desktop and go airbnb.com/multi-calendar, and it will force load the multi-calendar if it's possible, right? If you don't get the multi-calendar, just duplicate a couple listings. Even though you don't need them, just make new instances of them and then snooze them just to get the multi-calendar and all the performance stuff. This will also unlock 2-day discounts, 3-day discounts. My pricing strategy is heavily based on 2-day discounts or 3-day discounts. We're going to talk about that in a second because it actually plays into this. So what we have here is we have my average occupancy rate over the next 60 days, and then we have my average nightly rate over the next 60 days. For, I think this is one city. Like I might have typed in Dallas or Houston. What you're going to notice is if you go all the way to the right, that's 60 days from now. And you see this chart is lower than the dashed lines, and the dashed lines are the market average. What actually matters for occupancy, though, is not if you meet the market 30 days from now, it's how full you are today, right? You notice how today and tomorrow, I am way more occupied than the market, where the market is on average 25% occupied. Then day of arrival, they're at like 60 and like 65, and I'm respectively like 80 and 95%. The secret to 95% occupancy is to only care that you hit 95% occupancy or 100% occupancy the day of arrival. Being booked in the future does not matter, right? See, your long-term strategy is like a big bird's eye view strategy to try to get the biggest bookings possible at the best rates. So if you notice here, I'm less booked this day, right? This is the spike of occupancy, but this is the nightly rate for the same days. See, my bookings, my 20% out of the 45% or 40%, I'm collecting on average about, this is 100 and that's 200. I'm collecting $40 more or $50 more a night for those dates. I don't want to be the first person booked. I do not want my 30 days here, I do not want to be the leader there. I want to be the leader here. That makes sense? Because when I get that first booking, I want somebody who's looking at the market. I want to see some of the supply start to go away. I want to be one of the ones that's left, kind of like mid-market, and I want them to book me at some egregiously high rate because they preferred my property or because the supply and demand curve changes. It's true that Airbnb kind of is oversupplied in the guests' favors lately. I just think a lot of cities are a little bit oversupplied, and it's constantly going to ebb and flow. Hosts are going to stop because it's not worth their time, and then some hosts are going to jump on because they think there's going to be a lot of money. The pro hosts will always be here. We will always adapt. We will always change. We'll always have a good product. But there will always be like supply changes, right? So if you can get your bookings, like here, for example, on the 8th, I'm collecting like $80 more, and I'm at the same occupancy as everybody else. That's really good, right? That day I crushed it. So even these days where I've got almost 100% occupancy, I'm still collecting $30 more than they are. I'd rather be this person any day of the week. So my pricing strategy, I price 30 to 40% over the market baseline. For those of you who do not know my pricing strategy, it's one of the things I harp on most. Let me just quickly catch you up. I charge 30 to 40% more off the gate. I then put a 2-day or 3-day discount to meet me back at the market. So I want to be competitive on a multi-night stay. And a lot of you might go, well, why don't you just have a 3-day minimum, right? Why price like high and then do that? The reason why is I want the views. See, you're balancing your occupancy strategy with your SEO strategy, and your price drives both. If you put a 3-day minimum and have a good but competitive price across the board at a 3-day minimum, when people search for a day or search for 2, you never show up. So your views go from 1,000 views a month to 450 views a month. And Airbnb's algorithm is called an interest algorithm. The number of views you get determines where you get ranked when people actually search. So 3-day minimums is one of the fastest ways to kill your views, which is then one of the fastest ways to kill your SEO. So my pricing strategy is always be seen every time. And some people are curious. They're like, why is this listing $450, right? Let me click to see what a $450 listing looks like. They're not going to book, maybe they do. But at times, I'll get these insane spike bookings where I get way more than the market because somebody just decided they liked my spot. And then I fill in the gaps. So what I've done is actually, you'll even see it. You can actually see it on this chart. So this night got booked first at a big, big markup. The day before, these days are harder to book because in order for somebody to book the day before reservation, they have to check out that day, right? It's got to line up on your calendar. We're not a hotel, right, where we can sell 20 people like on a weekend and then just decide the day of arrival what rooms they get. We have this one-to-one relationship with our bookings. If somebody books apartment 2 can't get a week-long stay if there's a listing in the way, if there's a booking in the way. Hotels, they don't have to worry about that, do they? No, they're just like, hey, let's just wait till everybody checks in and tell them what unit they get. Hotels have a huge advantage here. They absolutely have this as an advantage. So we have to change our revenue management strategy. We cannot even follow a normal hotel revenue management strategy because we have to give away a listing. And that's why we have strict cancellation policies, because we are giving away the listing when somebody books. It's pretty much married off until they arrive or cancel themselves, right? So with these 2 days before, I actually drop the rate immediately. So when somebody books and they book at 30% over market, the day before, I automatically drop that rate by 30%. I no longer overmark adjacent days. Those are called neighboring days in my pricing strategy. I'll drop them immediately because they are compromised on my SEO strategy. So the better your listing will perform on SEO day to day, the more you raise your rates. The worse your listing will perform on SEO, the more you lower. And that's the relationship between your SEO and your pricing. Which means that last minute here, me getting these bookings, I lowered these rates here too because I have less total days to get them booked. See, you need time in order to sell time, right? I need days to sell the days that I'm trying to sell, right? The lead time between now and when somebody checks in determines how many views I'll get on a listing. And the less views I'm going to get before that day comes, the more attractive I need to make it by price. Make sense? So now, there are some things that you can do to hack this whole game. Airbnb is arguably still a niche, right? Everybody's like, yeah, the niche market, short-term rentals. Well, Airbnb is a monster, right? And it's not a niche anymore. It's fastly becoming not a niche because Booking.com has picked them up, Expedia has picked them up. Airbnb has hotels now too, right? Even on Airbnb, we are competing against hotels because they bought Hotel Tonight and they're doing all this other stuff. So here we are, competing squarely with hotels. So you can niche under the niches. If this dies, it dies. Don't worry about that if that's what you're doing. Rocky 4, okay? You got it. Let me just shut this down. So there are niches within niches. And somebody asked about accessibility. Was it you, CPS? Cool. All right. So there are 3 levels of ADA accessibility. The woman who leads the accessibility team at Airbnb actually got into a bad accident, and she's now herself disabled. How crazy, right? But she's the most chipper person in the world. She's like, it's because I talked to her 2 years ago, and I talked to her again, and that had changed since we talked last. I'm like, the irony in a way. If any of you want the data they just sent me, I actually had a talk with them about a month and a half ago. They sent me a bunch of data so I could do a video on accessibility. Just send a message to our Airbnb Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/Airbnb Automated, right? And just ask for our accessibility documentation. So they sent me a bunch of updated charts and graphs and cool stuff. So accessibility is one niche within the Airbnb space. Be on the first floor and an apartment complex that has ramps up to the door and has no lip, right? Where people don't have to like go up a step to get into the front door. That is like the first thing. You want like a 36-inch wide door, like a wheelchair width door, and you want easy accessibility into the front door, into the bathroom, into the bedroom, and you'll need a certain amount of clearance around the bed and around the toilet and stuff like that. So there's level 1 ADA. Some cities, you get 400% the search just by being disabled friendly. It's an insane change of supply and demand.
See, I knew that going into this, and I knew that because I haven't even started my business yet, but just working what I do here in Chicago, it's what the city has done here just for accessibility, because it's a law now. It's a law for people to have access to everything.
That's awesome.
They're redoing the sidewalks. They're redoing,
So city
businesses.
Infrastructure is changing to accommodate disabled.
Yes, correct.
Cool.
Because they will in turn turn around and it's a Disabled Persons Act, I believe, and they will pretty much go after businesses and or people who don't have access to their businesses or properties.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome and scary.
Yeah.
I could imagine business owners who are like old and they've already built everything. They don't have the capital to change it. That could be tough. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, with Disabled Accessible, the only thing they've ever asked me to tell all of you is to never use the word handicap ever in your life. Cross your heart, hope to die, don't say it, right? Don't put it in your copywriting, anything, because it's just not a nice word, apparently. And I didn't know that. So, there are going to be 3 levels of ADA accessibility that they'll outline in the stuff that I'm going to give away to you guys if you want it. But that's just one niche. Another one is pet friendly. And I've been testing how to be pet friendly. And my best performing listing, the first 2 words are yes pets in all caps. Exclamation point. Yes pets. And then, of course, the rest of my typical listing SEO stuff. Your listing title and description matter for SEO, but I've got stuff on the YouTube for that. We don't have to get into that. But I put yes pets because as people are searching, they forget to use the pet filter, right? People forget to do things. Like they're listing, they forget to put entire place, or they forget to put free parking, or they forget to put pets. So that the features that you're really looking to push, you should be pushing it on your title, right? Especially ones that are not obvious, right? So yes pets has been great. Now on the other side, it's impossible to both be pet-friendly and hypoallergenic, but you can push to be as close to hypoallergenic as possible and be near medical centers, right? That's another cool niche. Another niche is event-friendly, and if you want to make tens of thousands of dollars in a night from insurances, talk to Sean Ray about event-friendly spaces, right? That's $2,000, $3,000 a night is killer. So these are examples of niches and themes, like my unicorn house, which is sadly no longer. And let me tell you a story of failure. Womp, womp, womp. Okay. It was so good it went bad. That pretty much explains it, doesn't it? Okay. So in Philadelphia, townhomes on city blocks are like shotgun, like narrow homes, right? And so this is a 4-unit townhome, 3 stories high with 2 front and 2 back listings. And I decided to theme the property because the dimensions were so terrible that you could not sell this listing as a standalone regular home because everything was so narrow. The bedrooms just sucked. The shape sucked. I'm like, we need to distract these people, right? Let's paint unicorns all over the house. I released one video of us taking photos of it, and we're about to release a video where my professional photographer friend and I compare notes. That's coming soon. But a themed property, it worked. It worked so good that people were hashtag living their best life until 5 a.m. 4 nights a week at double the market rent every time. I killed it for about 2 months, so much that the neighbors mutinied to the landlord, and we agreed to just part ways. So if you cannot control your guests' behavior in a home like that, and the landlord gets pressure from the local tenants, it doesn't matter how good your contract is. If the landlord decides that they hate what's going on because they signed on the line for rental arbitrage, they're like, this sounds great. The home was empty for over 90 days because the home was a terrible shape. They couldn't get anybody to fill it. So I got it at 15% off market, 2 months free on the front end for a 3-year lease, and then like did my whole thing. And now 7 months in, we now just kind of killed the deal because it wasn't worth it to them. So it was cool on the front end, but because we couldn't keep the parties down, the late night unicorn parties where people had onesie like unicorn pajamas and everything. It was so cool. It was so cool. I would totally do it again, but I will do it in a property that has a yard where if people are being unicorns, they're going to be unicorns in their own like private space without any walls shared with any neighbors, right? So themed properties will come with their own mixed bag of products. I definitely chose a theme that was totally like in line with that. People near, like, I do a lot of calls with people near Disney, and so they're theming with their favorite Disney characters. And people near Universal are doing these themes. And they're really cool because people who want to be immersed in their experience for travel, this totally makes sense, the theme. You probably know some people in Houston who theme like sports themes, like Houston Astros, yeah. So yeah, there's also a guy who's on my Hosts of Airbnb Automated. Which one? No. I saw the Mario one, though, and the Back to the Future one. And they're all shipping containers? Okay. Because just imagine like a shipping container yard, right? Where it's like all shipping container homes and they're all built on top of each other like Ready Player One, right? Do it, right? Send it. All right, so themed properties are another niche. My point is that there's niches within niches and they insulate you against oversupply, right? Contrast, per se. You see a row of like red or yellow flowers, and then you suddenly see a purple or orange flower, and your eye goes to the one that's different, right? That's just kind of how we recognize patterns, and we look for the outliers. So as people are droning through listings on Airbnb, anything that contrasts your typical competition gives you an immediate increase in conversion. You suddenly become more valuable because of the law of scarcity, right? Who here knows Robert Cialdini? Is that his last name, right? Cialdini? Yeah, it's 6 Principles of Influence. Scarcity is a great one. So if you contrast the market, and when you do market research, this is one thing that you can really do. You can look and say, oh, hey, Sonder's in this city. Of course, Sonder's in this city. And all their listings have this like white and blue and gray kind of like look, and they're doing like bohemian chic or something like that. They've got a couple key designs that they use. So you just go opposite end of the spectrum and make 4 or 5 listings that are totally not that look. They could be the same size. Same building even. I compete with Sonder in like 5 properties that I currently have. They are also tenants at the same property. And it's our unique designs because we have some properties that are just so like kind of doing their own thing, not quite unicorn house crazy, but doing their own thing. They get booked and Sonder does not. We keep up with their calendars and they don't get booked. And they also don't actively manage their prices yet. They do not have a dynamic pricing strategy yet. Sonder is actually losing money, but that's because they're treating their business like a tech business. If any of you guys know, tech companies just like to burn money to scale, and then they try to flip on the profitability switch later. This is good for us because we can make money for a couple years. We don't have to like come out of losing money as we grow. That's the one thing that I think has been kind of unique about my business is I've never taken a dollar from an investor. I own 100% of my business, and I don't have any debt. I've been using my own profits and reinvesting. And Sean Ray's like, when are you going to spend your own money, right? But we're traveling like half the year now, so there is some spend going on. But if you build on good fundamentals, right, and keep it basic and just reinvest your profits from good deals, 2 years from now when Sonder tries to flip that profitability switch, they still have a long way to go before they can actually make up all that lost money. And they may not survive this move. They may think that they're building a tech company and they're going to run square into the truth, which is they're running a hospitality business. And there's no amount of tech in the world that's going to get them all that money back because they're selling time, right? And that's where I think they're making their mistake, if I'm going to tell you one thing about Sonder. And I've got a friend who writes for Forbes, and he's been telling me all this stuff, so I get to kind of hear all these things. That's actually how I found out that they're losing money. Moving forward. Who has questions on anything I just said? so far? Scarcity is one. Who here knows the rest of them? Liking, confirmation bias. Is liking one of them? If somebody likes you, is that one of the principles? Okay. Reciprocity. You give somebody something first. And you know, we did a video way back in the day about reciprocity by giving somebody a discount but framing it like in a reciprocity is where you do something for somebody and they cannot return the favor, right? You cannot ask them. You don't expect them to return the favor ever. And that generates reciprocity because somebody wants to do something back for you then. Yes. Oh, it's the science of influence. There's a YouTube video that's like 12 minutes long, and it's wonderful. It's like an infographic. Yeah. We are marketing, right? So we talked about Pro Tools, right? We talked about the 6 principles of influence out of nowhere, which is fun. Yeah.
My favorite topic about rental arbitrage is the exit strategy, and I think it's really important for you to tell people about the long-term.
What am I up to? Oh, do I have to? Oh, do I have to tell you? Okay.
Is there an end goal and date?
All of my current listings are a prototype. This is all hypothetical still to me. I am beating up the idea, breaking it, building it, changing it, seeing what I can do. 2020, we are in the systems phase. 2019, we're in a growth phase. Like, how fast can we grow? What does growth look like? If we try to take on a growth project, how do we hire? How do we deploy our money? How do we get our money back? This is all academic still. 2020 is systemizations. Now that we're at 100 doors, we want to take a look at like what we can do. We've not been multi-platform yet. We scaled just on Airbnb to keep it simple, to keep it aerodynamic. Now we're doing channel management stuff and Booking.com and all these different types of systems, and we're going to start doing like different types of marketing strategies that include an ad spend eventually. And of course, you guys get to see all this on YouTube in 2020. It will come up. I share everything. But my next project for this is to sell 2,000 doors to Goldman Sachs for like a couple $2 billion. That's my goal, right? And I'm going to share this with you. I probably shouldn't. The problem with rental arbitrage, according to investors, is the life of the lease, right? If your lease ends in 3 years, then you don't have a business anymore, right? That's usually the problem. So people are like, oh, your business can't be worth $2 billion because your leases you only have 2 years left on your leases, and you can't guarantee that you're going to get the lease renewal, right? Well, Goldman Sachs owns 80,000 houses that they're having a hard time managing, right? They're getting like smeared in the media. So I go to Goldman Sachs and I say, hey, give me 2,000 of your doors. I'm going to be your tenant on 2,000 doors. Lease them all. I'll even do the repairs, and I'll just deduct it from rent in the future. I'm just going to make your life easy, right? So your 80,000 properties are now closer to 75,000. And so you keep all the staff that you have, but manage less properties. We'll just take over these 2,000 to 5,000 doors. We build the systems, hire the housekeepers, bring on the channel management. We deploy everything and build this beautiful rental arbitrage system under a new company, only with Goldman Sachs leases. And when we sell it back to Goldman Sachs, the leases don't matter. They disappear. You took a rental arbitrage, and on sale, it ceases to be arbitrage. Length of lease becomes irrelevant to that sale. And you're selling to the owner of the properties who could then deploy to all 80,000 properties. It creates a synergy play, doesn't it? They're like, oh, so we're buying the systems on 2,000 doors for a couple $2 billion. And then if we want to like apply this to our other 78,000 doors, we can at will. We can scale this operating system. So that's my secret. Essentially, it's like a triage play. Like, oh, you're losing money. Let me take over these properties. I'm making money as I arbitrage them until I build it to be pretty, and then I sell them the business, the LLC that owns everything. I just sell them basically short-term rental management in a box. They get all the employees. They get everything that's proprietary to that company, and we part ways.
And they own it.
So when you're done with this, will you still do videos, or you want
I will do videos that I'm allowed to do at that point. I'm sure that if they bring me on as like the CEO of this startup where they fund me, they may not want me giving away proprietary stuff that they will like agree to future buy. But the thing is they may not make a future agreement to buy. So I will have uninhibited rights to make videos until the point that they decide to buy.
Just to answer that, he will still make videos. Check out Lords of Travel. It's going to be launching in 2 years.
Yes!
It's going to be great.
Yeah, remember the iguana Yeah. So we've been shooting a lot of travel videos. So we will be posting a bunch of cool travel content in the future. The why matters, guys. Like, you guys spent money and time to fly here to talk about rental arbitrage, to network with other people who are good at this, and to learn, right? But why? So you can go back and pick up a couple more properties and then go home and watch Netflix, watch The Witcher a fourth time, right? Great show, but it deserves maybe 2 at most. How you spend your time will matter when you die, right? We are selling time, and if we don't get it together to understand that time is all that we have, then it's kind of funny that you're running a business selling time where you have no value of your own, right? Here we are, right? So you're spending time to do better, but then what do you do once you do better? Are you going to be stuck in this endless do better loop, which Sean Ray saved me from? Thank God for Sean Ray. And I think I've learned a lot in this building of this Airbnb business and selling time to people. You know why people get so upset when you have hairs in your shower or the bed's not done right? You know, Americans have about 1 week, maybe 2 max of travel time per year. It is where their anxiety spikes the most. They are the most bent out of shape and worried about their travel. They're like, what if it goes wrong? Oh, it's just destined to go wrong. My travels never go right. I get no travel time. I hate my boss. I get 1 week away. And they try to cram, like, remember when we tried to cram everything into one trip because we didn't have enough time to travel? American travelers, they do that. They try to cram full of activities. And next thing you know, they have no free time to breathe during their vacation because Americans don't value time, right? So then they show up to your Airbnb and something's just not right. They don't understand your check-in guide, which Airbnb is actually going away from the check-in guide. If you guys know, all of your new listings will no longer have it as a feature, which is fun. So you need to make your own off-platform check-in guide, another reason for a channel manager, right? But they show up and they don't understand the check-in guide, or it's too cold when they arrive, or the housekeeper's still there cleaning because the last guest threw a rager and your cleaners can't get done in time. And it just puts like a bad taste in their mouth, and it confirms their greatest fear, that their vacation is going to suck. And now it's all your fault, right? Because you're the one who spiked that PTSD that they have about their travel experiences because they have all this built-up trauma around it. That's why people are so upset when something goes wrong. And that's why I think your business model is great about delivering experiences. The moment that you care about their experience instead of just whether or not their place was clean is the moment that you actually have empathy for your guest. Who here remembers the story that I told my Houston manager about the woman who had cancer? Thank you for remembering that. She remembers it too. I think she's got a little trauma from that one. For the many of you who don't understand it, my Houston manager has been the most hard to break person in the world. She's from Chicago, actually. She might actually be up here right now. She's fighting for custody of her sister. She had a hard life. A lot of us have had hard lives, and it makes you survivors, right? And that's why some of us are entrepreneurs, because we just can't get enough abuse. So she's fighting for custody of her sister, and she won, but there's like this legal battle on the back end, so she's been up in Chicago a lot. But she moved down to Houston to work for me. She worked for my media company prior, and she could handle guests like nobody's business. You could scream at her, throw furniture, and she just didn't care. She was like, this ain't Chicago, this is easy. Texas is a cakewalk compared to Chicago. But she got so busy as we scaled that she started to let the guests distaste with their experiences become just like a fact of life. She no longer tried to prevent guests from having bad experiences. She's like, well, if the cleaner can't get done on time, this is our best case scenario, and this guest is going to have to eat it. They're just going to have to deal with it. There's going to be a shakeout. I know a lot of us hosts who are spread too thin, we start to take this kind of devil may care approach and yep, we can't be perfect, and so for the few that we can't be perfect for, sorry, but this is your trip, right? And you're gonna make the best of it because we can't. But she took that unprotective approach to her guests, and we had a guest that just had an absolute terrible experience. The key was missing, place wasn't cleaned, she didn't have a place to stay, and so we tried to give her a new place, and then there's something wrong with the lock for that one, and it just became a really bad night for this guest, and she kind of broke down. And the guest had if you ever seen a guest cry, you don't want to see a guest cry, because then I cry. So I'm a little too empathetic. So I said to Catherine, my Houston manager, I'm like, I don't want you to respond to me as I send you this message. I'm like, 5 minutes, don't you dare respond. But I know you're reading these, so I just want you to sit and stare at your phone for a second. I'm like, I want you to imagine there's a woman flying in from wherever she may be flying from, Chicago, Philadelphia, to Houston, because Houston has the best cancer treatment in the country, maybe even the world. She's coming to visit her mother who has stage 4 cancer, like leukemia. She's terminal. She's coming to see her mom for the last time. She goes to show up to drop her bags off at our apartment before she goes to Memorial Hermann to see her mom at 4 p.m. because it's the only flight she could get, and the cleaners aren't done or something else. And then she's waiting to get into the property. And then you try to send her to another property because you're like, I don't care, let's send her somewhere else. And then she's got to get an Uber to another part of town, and she can't check into that one. And unfortunately, by the time we get her sorted, she can't get to her mother's like hotel, like hospice in time. Visiting hours are over. Mom dies at like 10 p.m. That's your fault. If you only treated this business with that level of care, like that was your mom, then she could have saw her mom one last time. I pray this never happens to you, because I don't want you to live with that for the rest of your life. And that's what we deal with, right? We are dealing with people's lives. Every time that they come to travel to us, their lives are in our hands for just a couple of days. And we owe them the best that we can give them. Everything in this business is so simple once you get that out of the way, isn't it? You've got a front door. They unlock it. They drop their luggage. They go to sleep. They wake up. They go through their day. They hopefully enjoy your city while they're there. And they go home to wherever they are for their 1 week of vacation per year. And hopefully, because we did a good job as hosts, they don't have any trauma because of it. So if there's one thing I can teach you, you're human. Your guests are human too. If you love people as much as you should, you will never go out of business. There are a lot of people out there that are just in this for the money. And I know you care about it. Good talk. So with that said, I'll give you 10 seconds and we can ask some questions.